Hello, this is Domenico again with Easynomics, and we're going to continue our discussion of deflation. And in this video, we're going to look specifically at good deflation. To illustrate this, we'll have two models that we can see here, both illustrating this concept of good deflation. And good deflation, it occurs when you either have an outward shift in the SRAS curve or perhaps an outward shift in the LRAS curve. In the previous video, we saw how we entered a deflationary gap as a result of aggregate demand decreasing, but then short on aggregate supply shifting outwards as firms utilized means to reduce their costs through perhaps automation, the applications of automation technology, or employing resources, land, labor, and capital at lower prices, lower rent, wages, interest as a result of the unemployment, causing households to reduce the income they would like to receive from providing those resources, and SRS shifting outward. So we're going to illustrate that point again here, but just focusing on LRS, SRS, or AD and LRAS. So let's first look at graph A. Okay. So graph A, oops, graph A, here we just have an upward sloping SRAS curve with the LRAS, providing an equilibrium at point A with full potential GDP at YP. We're assuming this, and with a price level at PL1. We saw in the previous video that if firms are able to find ways to reduce their costs, if they employ automation technology, if they employ AI technology, if they decide to employ more freelance workers as opposed to having full-time workers in which they have to provide benefits to those full-time workers, and they find it more cost-effective to hire freelance, that would all lead to reduced costs of production. And if firms begin to utilize these new technologies or new cost-efficient methods, then the SRAS curve is going to shift outwards. So we can illustrate SRAS shifting out from SRAS 1 to SRAS 2, firms employing means to reduce their cost of production. And we see we go from point A to point B with a lower price level. Right? So the price level falls from PL1 to PL2. Okay? That is deflation, but it's considered good deflation because we're still maintaining full employment, but because firms are using these means to reduce their costs of production, new technologies, automation, AI, or perhaps households offering their factory production at lower rent, interest, or wages, the SRAS curve shifts out, still maintaining full employment, but the price level has fallen, and we've achieved what we call good deflation. So here is an illustration of SRAS shifting out, leading to good deflation. Now in graph B, which we're about to illustrate right here, we're going to have the LRAS curve shift out. And here we'll have LRAS shifting out, perhaps due to some type of supply side policy, which is something we will discuss in a later video. And again, this is going to lead to good deflation. Okay? Good deflation. So later we're going to talk about something called a supply side interventionist policies. This is for a later video, but I'll just mention it here. Supply side interventionist policies are policies that or investments that the government can make to reduce their natural rate of unemployment. Perhaps they want to reduce their level of structural unemployment or frictional unemployment or seasonal unemployment. Let's assume that with the supply side policies, they're going to be targeting reducing their structural unemployment. Right? And let's say, for example, in the case of Spain, Spain might have a fairly high level of structural unemployment. Maybe it's about 10%, or maybe it's about 15%. I'm sorry, that they have a very high level of natural rate of unemployment. Right? So at that natural rate, maybe they have 10% of their labor force that's unemployed, fairly high natural rate of unemployment compared to other developed nations. And perhaps a component of that, a significant part of that, is due to the high levels of structural unemployment. People having skills, they're not really demanded by the current labor market or by firms. So what can the government do? A supply side policy would be the government intervening by really increasing investment in education. In education. So let's say they make a concerted effort to really improve the quality of their education, which will improve the quality of their human capital. And that in the long run will lead to reduced structural unemployment. So if the policy is successful, then the LRAS curve would be shifting out. Right? So we'll illustrate LRAS shifting outwards from LRAS 1 to LRAS 2. Right? So it takes about a generation to see the impact of those investments in education, improving the human capital to reduce the structural unemployment. In the long run, we do see the impact of that, and the LRAS curve thus shifts out because we have reduced the level of structural unemployment in the economy. And perhaps it goes from 10% to something comparable to what we see in the US, about 5% being their long run average level of unemployment. We notice that LRS shifting out has the effect of causing the price level to fall from PL1 to PL2. And this again is good deflation. The price level is falling, but we're achieving more employment, more output, and thus it is considered good. The price level has fallen, but we have less lower natural rate of employment, lower structural unemployment, and more real GDP output. Now, you may be wondering if the government's making those investments in education, isn't that an increase in government spending and isn't AD shifting out? Yes, that is the case, but we will discuss that in a later video. So let's just take a look and analyze these two models. In graph A, we are illustrating the impact of the short-run aggregate supply curve shifting out as a result of firms employing new technologies to reduce costs of production, leading to what we call good deflation. On the x-axis, we're measuring real GDP. On the y-axis, we're measuring the price level. We have a perfectly inelastic LRAS curve, a long-run aggregate supply curve. And we have two upward sloping short-run aggregate supply curves labeled SRAS1 and SRAS2, where SRAS1 is equal to LRAS at point A. It provides an equilibrium price level at PL1 with real GDP at full potential YP. As a result of firms employing new technologies, automation, AI technology, which is able to reduce cost of production, SRAS shifts out from SRAS1 to SRAS2. We have a new intersection of SRAS2 equals LRAS1 at point B, providing a lower price level at PL2, but we are still maintaining full employment at YP. Price level has fallen, although output and unemployment is unaffected. So this is what we call good deflation. In graph B, we're going to be illustrating the LRAS curve shifting out, again leading to good deflation. On the x-axis, we're measuring real GDP. On the y-axis, price level. We have a downward sloping aggregate demand curve labeled 81 and two perfectly inelastic LRAS curves labeled LRAS1 and LRAS2. Where LRAS1 intersects 81 at point A, it provides an equilibrium price level at PL1 with full potential GDP at YP1. Due to the government engaging in a supply-side interventionist policy, government intervening, investing in improving the quality of their education in the hopes that in a generation or in the long run, the quality of their human capital or their labor force will improve, that it will reduce the level of structural unemployment in the economy. And we see that that investment does have the effect of reducing the structural unemployment and reducing the natural rate of unemployment from 10% to 5%. So the LRAS curve is shifting outward as we're able to employ more people who were formerly structurally unemployed. LRAS shifts out from LRAS1 to LRAS2, providing new intersection at point B, where LRAS2 equals 81, with an equilibrium price level at PL2 and greater full potential GDP at YP2. Since the price level has fallen as a result of this policy, this is good deflation again. PL1 to PL2, we see the price level falling, but this is good deflation because we have achieved more output and more employment. And that's it. I have one more video to discuss a deflationary spiral, and that will be our discussions for deflation. So don't forget to like, subscribe, or to comment if you have any questions. Thank you so much.